Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome back to a brand new camp build. So we're down in the Cranberry Bog today, and a couple of weeks ago Bethesda released a few extra decorations and bits and pieces for building camps with. The main one of which was a greenhouse you see poking over the top there. So a few people have done builds involving that so far, and I thought I'd put my own spin on it. So the plan here is to build a research station down in the Cranberry Bog. I did originally want to do something with a bit more of a faction theme, so Brotherhood of Steel, something like that. But unfortunately, we haven't really got a great deal of stuff there. There's a few Free States things recently been released, but they are rather pricey. There's a lot in there, but they are still expensive. So this is where we are, down in the Cranberry Bog. We are literally as far south as you can get here, right up against the southern edge of the map. This is the Toga area there. Fort Defiance. Explore our way over a little bit. You can see where we are in relation to the White Spring, and about a bajillion miles from Vault 76 there. So as I say, right at the bottom of the map, there's actually a couple of fisher sites either side of this spot, so it's not perfect, but it's a reasonable spot that's not too busy in the Cranberry Bog. So first things first, we're going to get this greenhouse dome in. It's the centerpiece of the build, so we're going to build off that. I had a fair bit of trouble getting this to actually place, so it's something to bear in mind. It tends to either pop up to full height or drop right into the ground. And some of the problems I'm having, I think, are probably down to where I'm building more than anything else, but it's something to be aware of. See, I'm having a bit of an issue moving it as well. If you sort of look away and then look back to it, you can usually get it to grab again. It's a little bit temperamental like that, but it does work. Well, play with it a little bit, get this to actually sit in the middle of the screen, make it a bit easier. So I want this as central as I can get it in regards to the build area. That first effort was way too far over to the edge. And we're still a little bit too far back here, so we're going to move it one more time. Swayed it to move again, we'll nudge it back a bit. As I say, depending on where you're building, you might have an easier time setting it down, but here it was just decided to be a little bit awkward, so there's only so many places I could actually put it. This'll do. Close enough. So, a little nod to no respawns here, because Hugh's video was where I picked up this little technique. You can actually snap the foundations through the base of the greenhouse, or at least you can with the concrete ones, these ones. Getting them perfectly lined up is a bit fiddly, so I realised too late that I hadn't actually pulled that off, but nonetheless it works. Getting them to snap through the staircase is the one hardest part about it. They're a little bit temperamental, I guess is the word I'm going to be using a lot today in regards to that, but they will work. You can see they'll snap straight through the edge here, and we've basically got a solid foundation around the greenhouse. Final up at that, there we go. So that's the basis in. It needs to be a little bit bigger for this particular build, so we'll put another layer around the outside here again. Quick run around. Up the pace a tiny bit. Yeah, I ran out of build budget there. So, a little bit more floor space, that's what we need. And we're filling up most of the build area here, so going much bigger than this is going to start to cause problems. We're going to move on to putting some walls in. So, as this is a kind of military-esque research station, we're going for these defensive walls. So we're going to line it up with the foundation first. So there's a lot of trial and error involved in getting these to line up. It's either that or end up with it being kind of wonky. So take your pick, but a little bit of patience is required if you want them to line up. See, it looks reasonably good there, apart from a little bit of an overhang. Nudge it back a little bit. There we go. Look at that. Now, that looks pretty well lined up. Look around from the other side in just a second, though. We'll see that it's nowhere near as close as it appears to be. There we go. So, got a bit of an angle going on there. Thing is, the tiniest little angle with this first one translates to a much larger angle by the time you get to the other end, as we'll see in just a second. Still not quite there. I'm not going to show all of my fiddling with this because it's the same process over and over again, and it was rather extended. So, we'll snap these on, see how we're doing. As I say, once we get down a few more pieces towards this end, it actually wants to play ball. There we go, a little bit of lag there. You can now see that actually it is way more out of line than we thought it was. There we go. So I'll pull these back out again and do it again. So, sometime later, we have it lined up much more neatly. So, a slight detour to get some more concrete later, and we're going to put the rest of the walls in. One of the very cool things about these is they'll snap in at a 45-degree angle as well as a 90-degree angle, so it makes quite a cool shape for this. What we're going with here. Place up a little bit again. Out. And this is where the front entrance is going to be, facing the greenhouse door there. It's a little off-centre, but it's quite enough fiddling with this as it was, so if you're really picky about it, you can line that up a little more straight if you want. It's actually not quite even with the walls. They're not quite equal all the way around, but it's close enough. The results look pretty good, so I'm happy with it. Unfortunately, I couldn't get that one to snap in there, as it claims it's floating. Clearly untrue, but so it says. So we're going to swap over to this side, drag that one across, and now, for some strange reason, it's quite happy to snap on the left-hand edge. I'll nudge these ones back a little bit, and this one as well. It's not actually snapped in effectively at both ends, this one, but it's close enough that you can't really tell anyway, so it's fine. And there we go, we have an enclosed space. Doesn't leave us with a vast amount of room around the greenhouse to work with, but there's enough. Putting some tents in here later, and those are a very, very tight squeeze. They will fit, but only just. So, I want a little entrance on the front here, and it's a bit challenging to do that with these defensive walls on here. Not a big fan of the look of the warehouse style pieces, so we're going to go for the brick. If I'd gone for the defensive walls being at a right angle, it might have been a bit easier, but it would involve yet more adjusting, tweaking and lining up, so stuck with what works here. So my idea originally here was to put a room that basically extends both sides of the entrance there, but it didn't work, so I wasn't able to close it off at the edges here. Fortunately, the defensive walls are stopping the ordinary ones from snapping into place. Unfortunately, taking them back out and then trying to put them in afterwards won't work either, so we end up settling on just one space out the front here. So you can see the foundations are not perfectly lined up with the entrance, but it does allow us to use this rolling metal door, which is cool because I've not had the opportunity to do that yet. I'm quite happy with how this looks in the end. So we'll get a roof on here. Behaves a bit strangely, that door, sometimes, but it works. Now, get the roof on. I was hoping I might be able to persuade a roof to come on the inside and then just have this internal wall effectively open at the sides, but this was not to be. So we'll take those internal ones out, snap these corner pieces on to join up the roof, and there we basically have our entrance. That's the main part of the building. Beyond that, it's just placing structures and bits and pieces for decoration. There's a couple of little things I want to show in a bit more detail before we move on to a decorated tour. Firstly, these guard posts, I suppose? Little barriers. As you can see, they flicker like crazy when you place them onto foundations. And I wish I'd got the opportunity to use those concrete tyres in this, but unfortunately I ran out of space. But if you drop a little rug down like this, a little doormat, and place your guard posts on the top of that, I'll make my mind up on where I want it. As you can see, we can't see the rug, but it stops the thing flickering. Doesn't make it pop up too much either. I'd imagine if you stack a few of them, you could lift it higher, but as to whether or not that would reintroduce the flickering, I don't know. I didn't try it. However, you can have a look at it again, drop the rug in. That lined up. Popping up on the wall a little bit there, and there we go. Got a little bit more of a thorough way through there. So, not much point in having an automatic door if you haven't got a means to open and close it, so we're going to put a couple of pressure plates in here. So I need 2 pressure plates, a wall pass-through conduit, conduit junction, and that's basically everything you need to do this. So, a little mini tutorial in here. Can't remember where I saw how to do this, but shout out to that person, whoever it was. So pass the conduit straight through the wall here. For some reason it won't go through the door piece, but it will go through the brick wall. So there we go. It's a little temperamental about wiring it up. It wants to select the wall rather than the conduit piece, unfortunately. Possibly because we're so close to it, but managed to make it work. A little bit of finagling there. So we'll grab our first pressure plate. No, we won't. We'll put this conduit junction on first. Don't remember what's going on. So I'm using the one at the top just for the sake of ease, really, and tidiness, but you can use either one. We've already got our conduits lined up here, ready for it. I'm going to connect that to the conduit. So these pressure plates have to take power from the conduit and then transfer it to the door via the pressure plate. So unfortunately I can't just drop that outside to save myself some hassle. I'll have to start here. Get that position where we want it. Put the connector in the corner so it's out of the way. As I say, connect the pressure plate to the conduit, like so. If it wants to let me select the wire. Come on, there we go. So, conduit to pressure plate, and then pressure plate straight to the door. And if you just select the door at any point, it will snap straight to the conduit on the door, which is fine. It even clips through, which is kind of handy. There we go. You see we can open it from the inside. Now we basically need to repeat the procedure on the outside so that we can actually get in. So I'll open the door, head around outside, and it's the same principle. And this is where we use the wall pass-through conduit, so we can just use this single connector there. It saves trying to glitch wires through the wall as well, which kind of a pain in the neck. So, pressure plate to door, pressure plate to conduit. It actually wants to do it. There we go, it's there somewhere. Yeah, man. There we go. Gotcha. Well, the last thing you need to do occasionally is prime it. Kind of. It's a bit funny about that. In this case, it's just this outside one that's fixed into the open position. Sometimes you'll need to stand on both of them to get them functioning properly. Sometimes you won't have to stand on either one. But now it opens up, nip in, door closes behind us. Nice. And same thing works in reverse. In many ways, much easier than the faffing we used to do in Fallout 4. But also not quite as neat and tidy, unfortunately, with the wires trailing around there. You used to glitch the wires straight through the wall in Fallout 4 so that you couldn't see them connecting the two switch boxes, but this is what it is. Pressure plates work better because you're using the conduit around the side, whereas the switches are a bit of a pain to run around the walls. So, let's have a little look around. Rather large and imposing from the outside. I might put a bit more decoration in had I had any more build budget, but I'm rather close to the limit here. Couple of turrets, not so much to defend the place as warn me when anybody gets close, because this is a Cranberry Bog. Fortunately, I didn't have the budget for more powerful turrets. These front two foundations on the corner could probably have been removed, but I didn't, for whatever reason. Gives us a turret emplacement anyway. Couple of punji boards as these ones are a bit closer to the ground. As I say, these aren't really going to help fend off the kind of creatures you get in the Cranberry Bog, but they will let me know if anything's there, and the place doesn't really get attacked unless I'm actually present anyway, so I can rush out and defend the place. Unfortunately, those defensive walls are not as tough as you'd expect them to be, so something to bear in mind. Oh, we've got a few blackberries in the corner there. This would work better on the whole if we had actual planters, proper planters, but unfortunately we don't. Let's open the door and take a look around the inside. Nip in here. Little look at our setup here again. See, when I did it all over again to shoot that little bit of tutorial before, I ended up with what I think was a tidier result, having the pressure plate sticking out over the door a little bit more, but it works. And there we go. So we've got a bit more furniture going on now. Fusion generator tucked in there with the concrete bollards to block things off, concrete walls. I did want to build a kind of room or something around it, kind of generator shack, but nothing really snapped in, wanted to play ball, so This kind of works better with the open feel of it anyway. Got a little meeting area and a tent on that side. Do with like a lantern or something on there, but again, budgetary considerations. Little eating area for the researchers there. Power armor station, because it is a player camp after all. And a little sleeping area. I originally had some bedside cabinets in here, but it was a little bit of a nightmare to move around in there, and again, budget. Flag in there, which fortunately we don't need to wait for mods to have a waving flags this time around, which is great. And a porta cabin tucked in the back. And setting up some private facilities would be a bit of a challenge there. We need a decent shower set up though, that would be nice to have. So, let's have a look around the inside of the greenhouse. Relatively simple. It's a bit hard to place these tables very close to the edge because you start getting intersection issues. So they're pulled back a little bit. We've got a couple of chemistry stations in the centre there. A whole load of the linear planters on top of the tables there. It's a mission terminal just tucked in there for a workstation. Pulls double duty quite nicely there. And there we go. A new greenhouse door on the front there as well, just to complete the look. So we'll make our way back outside. Take a look around this place in the evening. That is, if I can actually get out the door. So, not too much light shining through the walls there. A little bit because I've got the lights attached directly to them, but it's not too bad. Not going to go all the way around the outside. See enough as it goes from here anyway. Yeah, we'll take a look around the inside. I'd have liked to have been able to squeeze a bit more of a dramatic lighting effect in here. Unfortunately, with the budget getting rather close, fingers crossed we'll be getting some improvements in that area during the second half of this year, but I'll have to see how that goes. If you haven't already, you can see my... yep, there's the problem with the automatic doors. If you haven't already, take a look at my overview of the QuakeCon panel from the other week, and get a bit of an idea of what we've got to look forward to for the second half of 2019. These are construction lights, which is because it's got a bit more of a military feeling to it. I'd like to use the ones on the floor in hindsight, but I didn't think of that, so the mate do. You can see we need a bit more light in that tent really, but I guess they don't hold their meetings at night. Otherwise, plenty of illumination. Few US flags around. So I would have liked to have done this with more of a Brotherhood of Steel vibe or something like that, but possibly Enclave, something like that. But options are a little limited at the moment. Still got my fingers crossed for a few more additions. The Free State stuff being added recently, it seems to reasonable that the existing factions might get a look in soon. So to light the greenhouse, I've got an ordinary hanging light just connected to the centre of the roof of the greenhouse, which lights it quite nicely. It's not too overdone because the space is big enough. Then we've got a conduit just snapped onto the back wall actually. It's kind of hidden behind one of the joins in the frame. You can get it at the top, but it's a bit of a stretch to run a wire to it there, so sort of connected a little lower. There we go. One Cranberry Bog research station. Do hope you enjoyed the build. If you did, please do hit those buttons for me. It's always very, very much appreciated. Social media links down in the description as well if you want to catch up with me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And if you're really enjoying the content, then please do consider becoming a channel member as well. The support is hugely, hugely appreciated, and we have a load of cool perks as well. And if you get the chance, please do stop in on one of the live streams as well. We're having a lot of fun with Meat Week at the moment, so I hope you'll join us for that. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.